Hey, how's everyone doing? It is office hours on Monday. Are you 320? Are you 201? I see we got a few people watching. Who is here and what questions do you have? I went and got my second cup of coffee. It says we got 4 people watching. If you're here right now, just be like, I want to know more about this. We'll be doing the 201 weekend review later, but you can always ask 201 questions right now. And then I mark the videos for what we're covering. So let me know what questions you have, and we will start going over those questions. We will see what questions people have. Do we need to come to office hours and do flashcards to get all extra? You only need to do one of the two. Great to see you here, Alex. Alexis, sorry, Alexis, right there. I'm really blind, so sometimes my eyes didn't catch your full name right there, Alexis. You only have to do one of these. Mubot should be awake. Mubot, yeah, Mubot's awake. There we go. And so some people were asking me about how does Mubot work. The way Mubot works is it just tracks your amount of time. I can also give out points. So let's go right here and add points to the viewers. So you just got 20 points right here for being here live, and then the points add up. This also adds up to your flashcard points, so you can get these points or you can get flashcard points, either one. The reason I don't require people to come to office hours is because 201 is an asynchronous class, so I'd hate to be like, you have to watch office hours, and like no one has to watch office hours. But if you're stuck on any of the questions, if you're like, hey Brian, I don't understand this concept, like right now we're doing displaying categorical data, displaying quantitative data. So we could talk. Let's hop over here to a little document and take a look at some stuff. Let's take a look at a little 201 to start. One of my favorite things right here is to talk about all the graphics we have. This is gonna be a lot for a moment. Here we are. These are all the graphics you're learning about right now. So if you take a look on the screen, you can see histograms, box plots, stem and leaf, dot plots, and everything's color coded. So the green ones are categorical. Like right behind me, where I'm at right down here, are bivariate categorical. Can we do? You bet. We'll do that next, William. You got it. So you can see right here, bivariate categorical on the bottom. At the very top, all the way up there, don't look at logistic, is univariate categorical with bar charts, pie charts, Pareto, frequency table, and ring chart. No one likes ring charts. Over there in the blue, you see histograms, box plots, stem and leaves, and dot plots. Those are all univariate quantitative. And then right here inside of this box I'm pointing to right there is bivariate quantitative, which are scatter plots and time plots. So this is a really good summary of what you're learning in 201 right now. So going through the graphics right here, understanding which graphics to use and when will be very important for the first test, and also going forward in the future, especially in 201, 320. A lot of the questions we have are related to like what kind of data are we working with? Because William can tell you right now in 320, we've been talking a lot about factors, and factors are categorical variables inside of R. So knowing what a factor is, what it means, how to use it, how to, we can do with it. So William, here's the last question. What graphic could you make with a factor? So we'll see right here. So factors are categorical variables. So what graphic could you make with a factor? And I'll show you why this matters, because funny enough, we actually did it today in class. So what graphic could you make with a factor? I'm bringing up the notes right here in the background so you can see it, because we did mention this for just a moment. What graphic could you make with a factor? Boom, you got it right there, William. You're 100% right. That's exactly what we did this today. We made a bar chart of these different categorical variables right here. The factor was the categorical variable, and we did this right here. So you see 201, we're talking about bar charts for categorical variables, and here in 320, we're making a bar chart with a categorical variable, which is a factor. So understanding this overlap can help with the other classes that factors are just categorical variables. And yeah, 201, William, do you notice that from your experience that what we're learning here in 320 is coinciding with 201 and helping out to be like, okay, we got categorical variables. We can make a bar chart of it. We can make a pie chart of it. No one cares about ring charts. Frequency table. We just make table. Do that. But let's look at number 2 here. We'll hop back here to space. Puppet Shark, you ready? He didn't appear in class today at all. Puppet Shark was taking a break. 100%. That's what I like to see. It's just practice. The more practice you have, the better you get. I'm going to pull up the assignment right here. Let me go get. Did you complete number 1, William? Great job if so. Excellent work on number 1. What is this? Oh, yeah, that. I was like, what is that? Get so many emails. I was like, what is that? Okay, I'm pulling up assignment 2 as we speak right here. Let's go. Let me do some. I'm gonna do something really quick, William. I'm gonna store for loop practice code. I'm trying to be good about uploading to the modules the work we've been doing. So let me put in a break right here. So we'll put this in. There we go, plus. Text header. Code from class. Don't indent. There it is. Upload file. So that way people can access the file I'm working with. Just helps if I remember to do it soon after class. And there we go. And okay, the code's there. Let me show that, and then let's go look at the assignment. I know you can't see it yet. Awesome. I just wanted to do a harder question. Yeah, we can do number 2. Number 2 here to start. Good to see you here, Rachel. Let's hop in. Let's take a look and hop right over here, and let's do it. Just really quick, once again, I was mentioning that I'm uploading the code. You can see here the R basics code we worked on last week. So here's some of the code we worked on last week, and here's the for loop code practice. So I'm always uploading the code from Classroom. Oh, you can't see that. Now you can see it. Doesn't matter, it's just a header. But the code from class uploaded right there, and we're gonna go in and jump to question number 2. Is this it? That's good. Okay. Let's go to question number 2. This one just has all the steps right here. It looks like a lot of steps. One thing you can do is you can hit this little R markdown thing. It makes everything look nice and pretty. And it just turns it into a Word document of sorts. So this is going to be a little nicer to look at once it loads. And now it looks like a Word document. So you can see your question 1, step 2. Autocomplete's not a word, Brian. I don't know what I'm doing. And grading right there. And you'll notice that the grading keys on these are very specific. And I put in the key. I had actually made a key for the last one, and then I didn't hit save, and it didn't save. I noticed that when I went to grade it. But this one does have the grading key on here. So translate for loops into their underlying sequence of commands and vice versa. It's good for practice for understanding how a for loop works. The following chunk defines X. So we're going to create X with 4 elements. So X is going to be a vector of the elements blah, 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 blah. Let's go take a look at that. Here we go. Here's X with the vector of this. What does concatenate do? This is one of the easiest functions we should know. It just makes a what. So William, what does concatenate do? It's just taking these numbers, joining them together, turning them into a what of information, which is just a line. Like this thing down here is also one of these. Like this is I was about to say it. What does that C do? It somethingizes these, makes it into a vector. So this is a vector, that's a vector. It's just a line of numbers. You might think like, wait a minute, how, Brian, is this a line of numbers right here that looks 2-dimensional? Well, if it wraps around the screen, it'll tell you the position. 1-dimensional object vector, exactly. And this is, we just need to repeat these things to ourselves, make sure we know it like this, that this is a line of data. If it ever wraps around the screen, it's just because it went too long. It's telling you this is in position 20 right now with the square brackets, which we do see some positional code right here to say, in position 4, store into 5 times x position 2 minus 3. So it's very important we can read this, the tedious way of doing it through all the different elements. Store into position 4 what was in position, or what is, store into position 4 5 times what was in position 2 of x minus 3. Good. Okay. So we're taking this right here, and we're going to identify the vector it's going through. Okay. And I think, correct, we're doing it all the way to the 10th element, correct? Okay. So the first thing it says to do is identify the vector. I'm just kind of working through this right here. What is the vector, William, that it's going through? The first step, and I try to put more steps to help people out. What is the first step we have right here? Identify the vector. What's the vector? Just look through and be like, what number does this go through, and it runs the code? There's 2 answers to this. Either one's fine. What would be the vector it's going through? I might even hashtag out my answer. You don't have to. Well, X is the vector being used. So we are using vector X and assigning, well, think about, let's do this. We'll come back to that one in a second. Let's write 4 and take a look at it. Okay, so here's the for loop. What do you want to use for the variable? I think you're on the right track now. You could here. We'll see if you can put the pieces together. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. I'll throw you some 20 points right. You're on the right track right now. And we're using vector like x is it? No, that's all right. X is a vector. I think that's where the confusion can come into place because now we're talking about this vector. Like the vector here is the what that the loop will go through. So the vector here, when the loop goes through and it's running, are the what's. Like explain to me what's going on here with this vector. Because these are going to be the what's that the loop goes through each time it runs, and it will control how many times it runs. Like the length of the vector is how many times the loop runs. So what's the deal with this vector? What does that vector thing tell us? What's the deal with the vector? What is it going to be? What is the vector? This is question 2. Yep. And Trace, feel free to ask more questions. We'll put them in line right here. I'm actually thinking about a new background, like a GDQ, Games Done Quick, REST DGQ background. I have ideas for the values the variable will take exactly. So when you say 4 through 10, you're saying when I run my code, I want the first time it runs for the skeleton to use 4. Like when this code down here runs, whatever I have right here will be 4. So once again, go easy. We've identified the vector right here, which is this portion. Now let's choose a placeholder. Now you can go as easy as you want with the placeholder. There's really only one thing we wouldn't pick right here, once again, because it's already in use. So what are you going to pick for a placeholder? Go ahead and pick a placeholder. What do you want for a placeholder? You can go classic right here. Whatever you want. Sometimes people pick POS for position or something like that, or like you write position, POS, so things like that. I usually go I agree with I. I is just the easiest thing. You could literally just call this Brian. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it's called. It's just going to be a placeholder for what changes every time the loop runs. Now, here's where things get interesting. What I want to do right here is just work with this for a second. If you think about this, the first time the loop runs, it's going to go right here and store 4 into I. That's what this line of code does right here. It stores 4 into I. So think about this. With this code right here, then I is equal to 4. What should we put now? What should I change this to? Because I is currently 4. So since I is currently 4, what should that become? I. Yep. How about this right here? This is 2. So since this is 2 right here, what do you think that should become? And what should this become? Which I think people get this pretty quickly. Because what you might say, why am I changing these? And you might say, well, here's the problem. Ooh, I'll ask it. I'll play a trick question. Hint for what's coming. That should be I minus 2. Now, watch out. Watch out. What should this become? And I want you to look up here at this and realize what's going on. What should this become right here? And I want you to look at this, what's going to repeat. And I want you to look at this one, which we just changed, versus this one. And what do you think this should become? So I want you to look at the code. Be careful, William, be careful. And that's why I asked this trick question right here. So just think about every time the code runs and what this needs to be. You see it now. You see it, right? Does it make sense? It's still 3. And does that make sense why this one will actively change? Because it'll always be 2 minus whatever this is, because this is 4, this is 2, this is 5, this is 3, this is 6, this is 4. Yeah, exactly. Great job, Trace. Yep, Trace, if we do that, which you can do, this would be 2 through 8. This would be 2, and this needs to be 2 or I plus 2. And then this needs to be I. Excellent work, Trace. 20 points. Just try doing that. Try changing it such that the code would work with the other way of doing it. You could do weird things, which I would not suggest. I do not suggest this. It would work the following way. This I would not suggest. Just because, why? Why are you... I mean, it can be done, but I wouldn't suggest it because... Yeah, I wouldn't. You could do even weirder things, but I don't, maybe someone wants, because it's between the numbers, and then this is, 3 plus 1 is 4, 3 minus 1 is 2. I would not suggest this way right here. And this would work perfectly fine. So I'm half tempted to leave it on there and see if people copy that one. I think I would maybe, if you ask me which one I would go with, I'd probably use this one, and I'll tell you why, because it makes sense that we say we're storing into the fourth element. So it doesn't matter which one you use. I guess the only other one that might be more tempting would be 1 through 7, like, which would show how many times the loop runs. But I'd probably choose this one because we're storing into position 4 right here. I wrote my code and I only get 10. You should. That ran. And then it says showing the grading 20 points at the loop. That's wait. Let me go down this one. 20 points, 15 points for correct loop. And then you need to print the last 6 elements. How are we going to print the last 6 elements? There's a lot of ways. So let's look. And there we go. Myra's acting weird. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 elements. And we get this because we keep running. Oh, did I put something wrong in here about how many elements you should be getting? I think everything's good, right? You are correct, William. Yep. You said you only get... yeah, ignore that 100. I'll have to make sure if anyone does 100. If someone does 4 through 100, then so be it. But this, yeah, 10's fine. And if you do 100, I'll have to make sure I grade it that way properly. There you go. And that'll change. My R is acting really weird. Let me try that again. Okay, it's acting fine. I get 1 value of can you put it in the chat right here, William? Let's take a look. So I'm feeling like coffee needs to kick in. I'm like, wake up. I'm gonna drink all the coffee. Put the whole code in the chat. And let's take a look at it. Let's see what's going on. Oh, do you have it right here? I think William might have it. Is this? Let me take a look. That might be your code. So here's the skeleton. Oh, you're printing X. That is, my R is acting weird. At the very end, you're printing X. And I, you're printing I. At the very end, I has stored into it 10. So you are rightly getting, and that stands for 10 integer right there. If it puts an L, it just means an integer value. Don't worry. Don't put all this extra stuff. Why is my R acting weird? So you shouldn't put I, you should put X. Does that make sense? Because you're writing into vector X. And so I will have the values stored in, like when this loop runs, it runs so quick we can't even see like it go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like I wish we could see it, but like it goes so quick you can't even see it storing into it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it is storing into the global environment. Like we could remove all this. We would need to remake X right here. But when the loop runs, it'll actually create I for us. And that's what we say, now I get null. Make sure you have the vector X stored. Check your vector X, because I believe if you don't have X stored, you will get null. That's just giving nothing right there. And it broke. Let me see your current code. These are the values I get. 7. Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. When you do that. Great job right there, Trace. Yep. Trace, that is correct. Why is my R acting weird? Don't like it. Got it. Yeah. Little tiny things. You know what you want to do right now? You know what you want to do? Let's see if Brian's looks. I'm just going to go here to knit. Let's see if it knits. Watch it crash. It could. You never know. It didn't crash. I would knit it. Be like, okay, I'm good. I've got it knitting. It's fine. I'm going to look down here at my work. Yeah, this would be fine. I've got some extra stuff out here. You know, this is really the only answer we need. Maybe I'd put, like, everyone, I don't know. Answer. You know what? Maybe I'll put it right over here. Oy. I'm just going crazy today. Can you do... Yep, that's correct. You can do that too. I think it actually shows... Oh my gosh. That should work right there too. 6L is just integer. It just creates... I wonder what happens if we do this. It's going to get mad. Be shocked if it doesn't. Yeah. Contains a numeric value. It wants an integer. You don't need the L on that because it's just doing... And I think you actually don't need the n equals because it's the default second argument. Why is it acting so slow? Is it the markdown thingy? It's taking a while to change back. Might be the markdown thingy. Yeah, that's going faster. Yep. Great job, Trace and William. What other questions do you have right now? Let me know. Keep working away right here. What questions do you have? All back here to space. Let's do it. So, question 2 is done. Working away. Hopefully it's making some more sense. Good practice right there. What questions are you working on? What do you want to talk about? We got one of the questions done. Is this assignment feeling a little bit better? That's 20% done right there. That was a 20-pointer. If you got that one done, you're 20% done with this week's assignment in 20 minutes. Which means, like, if that took 20 minutes, the whole assignment could take 100 minutes. Question number 4, you got it. Let's talk about some question number 4 right here. Question number 4. That was question number 2, right? Question number 4. I didn't get enough sleep. Oh, we got this. You ready? Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So this is forecasting, which is a lot like the activity one we did today. So when it comes to forecasting, we're going to use this equation right here. What does this equation look a lot like? What does that equation look a lot like? And it is what that equation looks like. Like, if we're going to use it. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of how much of this one I want to solve. Because I think people can get it. I might kind of give some tips for this one. Let's see. So what do you think that looks like? Looks like the activity one, right? And so when we create a for loop, we go right here and we have for. And inside of here, we have a skeleton. So what do you think that code is going to be? That code up here. That code up there is going to be the what? That code up there is going to be the what? What do you think it's going to be? I think we actually need that little part. Yeah. That code up there is going to be the what? Hard to get everything on the screen at one time. Do like it better. That code up there is going to be the what? The skeleton. Can you identify the other parts of this? Can you identify the other part about it? Will it give that? I hope. I think I've got everything wrong. Can you identify the other parts of it? T is the variable. And then do you see the other last part? Not n. Not n, because if you use n, how many times will the loop run? If you use n right here, how many times will the loop run? If you use n, how many times will the loop run? And you don't really want that. If you use n, how many times will the loop run? That's going to create some... It's going to be a very interesting vector now. Yeah, that's what I thought. 3 times. 3 times. And I think William, yep, William, you getting it right there. You getting it? Yep. I'm going to rewind time. There's some wrong answers right there. No, but don't worry. Because if you use n, it'll take on values of 7, 12, and 22. It actually creates this vector of NAs right here. Because when it goes to position 7 to store into it 4, 5, 6, 7, so it's using this right here, but when it runs that, it's going to go back one time and there's nothing there, so it can't resource that. It's going to take the square root of this one right here and it can't resource that. And it's going to go back 3 positions, do the log 10 of that, and it goes to here then. And so it just can't resource any of these. That's why it creates an NA right here. And if whenever it puts like a position 7, it has to then fill in the other positions, because if we're doing numeric ordered positions 1, 2, 3 to 7, it has to have NAs, because to say what's in position 7, if there is a position 7, we have to have position 4, 5, and 6. So that's why the NAs are created right there. The NAs are created because at the creation, we could show this. I'm trying to think. I'll make NAs right here. Be interesting. I think it'll only create through position 7. It got really mad. Oh, I don't even have the things in here anymore. This will probably... Yeah, I think it'll... Oops. Don't do this. Yeah. So then they're looking pretty good. William, you got it. So I don't want to... But William, don't obviously do the things I'm doing right here. I think, William, does this one make... Yep, it's looking pretty good, because take a look up here. Look at what you got. You got the recursive number. William, I think you got it. How do you feel about this question now, William, after looking at it? Is it making more sense where the things go? Great job, Trace and William. That's exactly what I want to see. Like when you get to this question, you're like, okay, that's the skeleton, that's the placeholder, that's the value it's going through, and so this is just going through, storing into the positions. Yeah. I think, you know, like the more you practice this, like if some of you have been practicing this for like an hour and a half, 2 hours now, and hopefully it's starting to get very repetitive and you know what to look for when we talk about the vector, the skeleton, the variable, which is the placeholder, which that was the whole point of today's lecture. I think we might even go to associations tomorrow. So we'll probably, you know, people might come to office hours for more help on for loops, but I think we've done it, because the Vegas example is really just like where I like us to get to. Can we do number 5? You bet. Let's hop back here to space. Let's do this. Turn on a little music. Hop back to space. And so I'm trying to kind of leave a little openness to the questions. So the for loop that does the values 4 through 20 with the vector n, and n has set values. Correct. It's assigning. So if you look at what you have for your loop, Trace, it's assigning into n into position 4, because it's starting with the value 4. It's assigning into the position 4 a formula based on the last 3 values. And then the next time it runs, it assigns into value 5 a value based on the last 3 values, like the half, the log 10, the square root, all that good stuff. So it's kind of appending onto the vector each time it runs. So every time your loop runs, it stores position 4, then it stores position 5, then it stores position 6, and it's appending on to the vector n right there into position t, which goes through the values 4 through 20. So just practicing this language, practicing understanding what's going on and reading it like you're doing right there. Great job, Trace. Let's throw some 20 points again. Good practice. I like leaving a little open-endedness, so let's do the next one. I might do a little open-ended. Oh, we got this one. We got this one. This one's the tough one. I'll give more hints on this one. Let's go take a look. It's probably the toughest one on the assignment. We did one like it during class today, during the activity. Hence why I want the activities and the assignments to kind of coincide a little bit. Define a vector called this. Okay, I'm going to put this in the chat right here. Makes it easy for you guys to write it. Who can define a vector called that? To initially be empty. How do we create an empty vector? So we want to create an empty vector with nothing in its positions. Not like a lot of ways to do it. A lot of ways. So many ways to do this code right here. You could talk to like coders and like they'd have 10 different ways of doing the same exact thing. So how do we define an initially empty vector? It says then write a for loop. Okay, we'll go down here. Oh, we already got it. I must have left that in. Exactly, we'll assign. I've already got the key for this written up and ready to go. Where is it? The key's on here. Like I've so many things. But I've got the key ready for this to go, making sure every answer is good to go. Exactly, average tip by day, store into empty vector. This is just a blank vector right here, has nothing in it. So if you look at this, I think if you look at it, but it says null. It's a null object. I wonder what its class is. Its class is null. That's interesting. There's other ways of doing this. You could store here NA. Any of these are fine. I'm probably going to store this. There's just nothing in there. It's interesting that it's the null object. But there's no positions. That's what that means too by there being a null object. If I do NA, then the first position's NA, which means there exists an object with a position. The position has nothing in it. If I do this right here, there exists an object and there's nothing existing inside of it. It's just like an ethereal thing. Define a vector here. Then write a for loop to populate the elements of the average tip by day vector with the average tip for each day of the week in the weekday column. So we need to load in the tips dataset in the reg class package. Now this is where someone's going to get stuck right here. If this doesn't run, what code do you need to do if library reg class does not run? This is where somebody on tomorrow night is going to be like, it doesn't run. I have no idea what's going on. What would you say to somebody if reg class is not loading? They say, I run line 165 and it says no. It says no. What are you going to tell them to do? So if someone says, 165 breaks, it says, cannot find package reg class. So why do I have reg class and how did I get it? Where's reg class at? There's reg class. How do you install a package? So I'll answer this right here. If you don't have reg class, you need to go here to instl al and go to install packages quotes reg class. This will go to the CRAN server. And when it goes to the CRAN server right here, it will download the reg class package. So make sure to download the reg class package. Once you have the reg class package, you can run library reg class. Do not keep this code here. Do not keep this code. If I am correct, this will crash it when you try to knit it. Maybe knitting to a Word doc will crash it. Great job right there. Yep. It says error on line 163. Oh, I think I might have left something up there. Oh, this. Yeah. We'll block comment that out. Cool. And then let's see if this crashes it. It might not crash HTML. It didn't crash HTML. Let's see if it crashes Word. Did they finally make it so that won't crash it? I was pretty sure trying to install... Oh, well, I'll be. I think they must have made it so it ignores it when it tries to knit it, but look, it says warning, package reg class is in use and won't be installed. So I wonder if you don't have reg class loaded up, if it would crash it. There we go. Okay, so I actually lucked out. If you try to install it, will crash it, but it didn't try to install it because I had library reg class on, so it wouldn't install it because it was currently on. So interesting. I have no idea what I just did. Interesting little error right there. Okay. So let's go right here again. We've got installed a package reg class. You don't need G Sheet right now. And hashtag this out once you're done with it. Good stuff. We've got everything good to go. Great job, Trace, right there. And now it says, define this vector, yada, yada, yada. Okay. For each week in the weekday column, make sure the contents of the loop by running the vector after finishing each loop. So let's look at the tips data frame. And I'm going to do something different. So you have weekday. And I'm going to do something very similar to what you're doing. So here's a hint. I'm doing something very similar, but I'm not doing the exact same thing. So someone's going to lose points because they're just going to copy down what I write. But I want you to think about what Brian's doing and how this is very similar to what you're doing. The first thing I want to do right here, let me put this, similar but different question. Okay. I am going to do the average tip by gender. Okay, so what are we going to subset on? Just I need one word in the chat. What is Brian going to subset on? Brian's going to subset based on what? What will Brian subset on? Just one word. I'm going to do the average tip by gender. So I need to take subsets of this. What will Brian subset on? Gender, exactly. So let's go right here. Let's go to the levels of gender. of tips. I forgot to go in the data frame. There's my autocomplete. And there we go. I'm going to go to the first one. Does that make sense? Because when my for loop runs, it's going to go to the first level in this vector. And we want to then take a subset of this. So let's go right here and go to subset tips, comma, gender equals this. I want you to take a look at my subset. What do you notice about my subset down here with this function? And if you're wondering, I'm using this. What do you notice about my subset? What do you notice about my subset right now? What have I done by going here? Levels. I went to the levels. I chose the first level. That's why this right here is this code right here. Like this is this code. This is the first level in the tips gender vector. Tips gender vector, levels of it. The first one is female. I have now created a subset of only what? Brian has now created a subset of only what? I've created a subset of only what? So I said, go to the tips data frame or take a subset of tips, and I only want it where gender is equal to what? I did a subset of tips by gender, exactly. And we're only doing female right here because that's the first level. And now I'm going to go before this. And what do you think I want to do whenever I create something? Which you could write this all as one line of code, but I'm going to separate it out into different lines of code. Usually before my subset, I go before it. And if you really want, you could put your condition on a different line. I guess you could even just select the one column. We're only interested in tip. So you go right here and go to select equals, we got to put in quote. So now if you look at this, we just have the tips for the females only. So that's all right there. That works. Sub, exactly. Sub. And you know what's interesting about this? Sub is just a vector now, which we might... Can we do this? Yeah, I don't like that. Good. I didn't want to do that. I'm actually going to remove this. I just don't like the way that looks. You could take the one thing you're interested in. You could take the two vectors. I'm just going to leave the data frame as is with all the vectors. You could use select to just get certain columns out of there. Like the more logical thing to do would be select equals concatenate gender and tip right here. So now we have the two variables. And now when we go to mean, we can go to tip right here. And that's a little bit more logical right there. Now, where do I want to store this? Where do I want to store this? I want to store this into my vector average tip by gender. I changed it right there for the question. Similar but different question. Don't do what I'm doing. You'll lose points. And we go right here, and then we have to store it into a position. This is probably the thing I would forget all the time when I first learned how to do this. We're going to store it into position female, which is right here. And if you look, we get right here a named vector. And the named vector is right there. Now, and you know what? This actually works with this 1 and 2 right here. Yeah, I could do it this way, and I'm going to change it. I've got a few ideas on how to do it. Because I could use 1 and 2, I could go through the 1 through the length of the vector. So with this right here, what do you think this will become the second time it runs? The second time it runs, which this is an okay way of doing it. The second time this runs, what do you think I want levels of tips gender to be? What do you think is just going to change the second time this runs? It's going to become male, right? And so now, when my code here runs, look what we get. Is that making sense what's going on? If you notice, the only thing that changed, and I could write it this way. What if I go right here and I go I1, and I change this to I? And then I run my code. Now, the second time I want my loop to run, what's the only thing I need to change to make my loop run the second time? what is the only thing I need to change to make my loop run the second time, which I've kind of shown. You can guess what I've done right here. What's the only thing I've changed or need to change to make my loop run a second time? So I've got the first run of the loop right here that it runs through, first run of the loop. And then what's the only thing I need to change to make the loop run the second time? It's the only thing I need to change to make my loop run the second time. Let's make the loop run the second time with the second element of the levels tips gender vector. Then what do I do to make it run the second time? What should I do right here? So the first time I becomes 1, skeleton runs. And then the second time it runs, I'm going to have what? If you see where we're going with this, it's literally the same thing for the other question. Like, it's just going through certain elements or levels of a vector. To make it run a second time, what will I do? How can I make this run a second time right here? Let's see, does MuBot see the future yet? Good, we did the points there. Console. What do I do to make it run a second time? All it's going to do the second time. So all it's going to do, I'm going to look at MuBot's future again. That's weird. He sees like commands in there. All it's going to do to run the second time is I is going to change to 2. And so all of this right here that I have right here is the what? All of this, and you can see it. Just watch as I goes 1, loop runs. I goes 2, loop runs. And so we've identified all the parts of this. Let's put it all together. So what goes here? So I need everyone's help in the chat. What goes there for the variable? So if you look at my code I've written up here, which I can then turn into a for loop, what goes there for the variable? Because I've written everything out. I've got like everything good to go. I just have to manually change I right now. What goes there for the variable, which is the placeholder for what changes that the loop changes for us? I, exactly. Now, there's a few ways because you're seeing me do this right here. I'd prefer, what would you put for the vector it's going through? I know there's an easy way to write it, but what would you put right here for the vector? There's the easy way of writing it, and then there's the the better way. That's I would say the way based on, since we're not kind of guessing or knowing the answer. So if you figure out I'll throw 50 points. Well, we don't want to go through sub. So here, wait, look at the vector right here. So the vector is the value that the loop will go through. 20 points right there, Trace. The vector is the values the loop will go through. And so here's the answer to the question. Watch. 1. So what values does I go through? What values does I go through? What values does I go through? Which is what the vector is. The vector is the values I will go through when the loop runs. So you have to think, okay, what does I need to become every time the loop runs? And I've kind of controlled that up there, controlling the values I will go through. And that's what the vector is. It's the values that the placeholder will take on each successful run of the loop. So whatever values or vectors you put, whatever the vector is, I will become the first thing, run the loop. I will become the second thing, run the loop. You can actually use that right there. That's actually a great answer. Perfect. The way I've written this, it won't work. So the way I've written this right here, what we need to do is we need to remove this, and we need to remove this. And now I think it will work. And I'll show the difference. That will work now, I think. It's a sudden change. Go to code. Okay, let's see if this works. Let's create the vector. Oh. I think this will work, and then I'll show the other way I was going to do. That does work. That's 100% correct. So this is the way, and I'll copy it right here. I'll put the second way. This is 100% fine. That works totally. And the way I had it before. Okay, good. That's another way right down here. With this way right here, think about this. And here's the answer again. with the way I have the code written right now, what will our placeholder become as it runs? Oh no, and I didn't change the placeholder. Oh, I think because maybe it didn't overwrite. Let me just change the things right here. So I becomes, I don't even have I down here. What have I done? Don't copy this down. We'll use the code I have up here. Might have lucked out. So the way I have this code written out, and then I'll do it the other way real quick. The way I have this code written out, Trace, right here, is we're going to have I become 1 and I become 2. So we're going to take this skeleton we've written, and then we're going to go right here. We're going to re-indent it, and then this I right here will go through the vector of 1 through 2, which is actually the length of the, why can't I think of it? The levels of tips, $, gender. Now it should run, and let me do it the other way. I might do a little quick the other way. Okay, that looks to be the right answer right there. It's the length of the levels. This is literally just 1 through 2. So it's a long way of getting 1 through 2 because we're figuring out the length of the levels vector. The levels vector is female, male, so it has length 2. So this whole code right here just evaluates to 2. It's just because how did we know how many levels there are? Well, we could look at it, but it's better to, we don't want to hard code in a 2. Does that make sense, Trace, why I did it this way? Is instead of writing 2, which is the length of the levels vector, this is just telling us, well, it's finding it for us. It's saying, go to the tips gender vector. What are the levels of it? Female, male. And then what is the length of that? Well, female, male is 2. So we're creating a vector of 1 through 2 right here. Yeah, so it's a much longer way, but it's more exact when it comes to coding. And then we're going through and doing each one. Now, the other way, which I think you were kind of alluding to, is to, and I'll do this one from scratch right here, because we basically have all this. This is, I would not suggest coding this much as I'm about to do. We just want to do the levels of tips $gender. And then we want to go to sub, take a subset of tips where gender, here we go, gender is equal to I, and then we want to take the mean of sub, and you won't get this right now because it's not created, tip, and we're going to store that into here, and we're going to store that into position I. Oh, yep, that worked because we changed that up there. And I think this has it. It's actually way nicer. And let's recreate the vector so we can see we have a blank vector. We should get 2.8 and 3.08. And let's run the code 2.8 and 3.08. There we go. So I think this is the way you were alluding to right here, which actually looks way better when I look at it. It's just that I is becoming this. So the first time it runs, I becomes female. So it says, just remember, it's going to become the first element of the levels tips gender vector. So we go right here and it's female. So I becomes female. So the first time this runs, it says take a subset and store into sub. So why do you actually don't. You could, so great question right there. You don't have to take the subset. You could go right here. We could do it all in one step and go right here and go to mean. This is where it gets iffy. I've already got the mean. There's the subset. Can we go here to $tip? Let me see where it's at. It's tip. This might work. And that's closing that off. Okay, let's see if it works. Yeah, there you go. So, and then we don't need the subset line. So, there's another way of doing it too. You could go to, I can't think, tips, go into the space, the vector space or the data frame space of it, and do where tips gender. I know, yeah, tips. I can't type today. Gender equals female, and so these are all the females right here, and you could go and get the tip vector from that and take the mean of it. And there we go, we just wrote a skeleton. So this might even be quicker right here. We're just finding out 10 ways to solve this. And then you want to take and store that into this. And this will be, so that's another way right there. Is that making sense, Trace? Then we also need to call this I, and we're going to take our control panel that we have up here. We've already got the start of the for loop written right here that we're just going through those different things. And then we're going to check our work. Do not do these 50 ways of doing it. We're just kind of seeing kind of a harder question with multiple different ways of solving it. And there's another solve right there. So we're not using the subset right here. Yeah, this is just more practice here, Trace. Like doing it without the subset function, we can do it with just a logical check, going into the tips vector space to go to the rows that are only gender equal female. Because remember, the first time I runs, I will be male right now because the loop has completed. So the second time I runs, it's male. And so it's going to find only the rows where tips gender is equal to male. And this is going to then create our subset for us. And it's only going to return the tips vector. So these are the tips for only males. To confirm this, we could look at this right here, which will be the tips data frame for only males. So now you see it's just males, and we have all columns, correct? And going here to just this returns only the tips column. So that's a vector of a column like this. And so now we take the mean of this, and then when we take the mean of this, we store the mean of this into position male. This is position male right here in the average tips vector. So a lot of information right here. That's a good one. And we've coded so much and gotten so much practice on this one. We solved it like 4 different ways. I'm trying to think if I can think of another way to solve it. I can't, at least not another logical way to solve it. But definitely it depends on how you choose it. What do you notice I spent a lot of time working on right here? Like a big component of me solving this was building my what to start, building my skeleton. So the building of the skeleton was really where I spent a lot of my time and focus. And just depending on how many steps you want to build it in, work on building that skeleton. Make sure it's correct. Make sure your skeleton runs the code you want it to run and creates the proper subset or does what you want. And then once you create the skeleton, the code will just repeat and you just change whatever it is via the placeholder that goes through the elements of the vector. Let's turn on a little music and see how everyone's doing. Let's do this. So great work. For loops are one of those things that sometimes it just clicks and it's going to take a little practice. And luckily we have the activity due tonight. I think a lot of people have already worked on the activity. We have some 10s out of 10s on the activity. Let's go take a look at those grades. See people have 10 out of 10 on the activity, which would be awesome. I'd love to see some 10 out of 10s on the activity. Yes, there's already a bunch of 10s. Love it. Be working on the activity. Get those 10 out of 10s. So I see some 10 out of 10s already. But be working on the activity. Lots of 10 out of 10s. If you're stuck on one, let me know. And Marie, get infinite attempts. Let me double check, make sure it's infinite attempts. Pretty sure I clicked the use multiple attempts. Allow multiple attempts. Highest score only. So it doesn't matter if you get a lower score, highest attempt. 10 out of 10. We solved 3 of them during class. So please, please, please work on the activity. And I'm trying to see right here. It's... Make sure. I'm going to send out some email reminders, but make sure. I just want people to practice. The biggest thing is practice. Let me click right here. I'm just taking a look at some stuff. Practice, practice, practice. Awesome. Any last questions? We got 3 of the homework questions done during office hours, or we did one completely. Then we basically explained how to do the next one, and a bunch of people were getting it. And then the third one, we did one virtually identical to what's on the homework. Just some little changes, like you're just changing the vector. Trace, were you able to get question number 5? See if Trace is still here. Were you able to complete question number 5? And yours is working, creating the vector. How's it look for question number 5? Because I feel like what we did right there should make sense with okay, I'm just using a different vector. It's going through different values, which then you're just changing the vector. If the code you get is working, and yeah. So that requires a little bit of adjusting, and I feel like you're right there if you can see okay, it's going through a different vector of values. And then be okay. What I did was so similar. It's like Breyer's chocolate ice cream versus I don't know, another brand's chocolate ice cream. You're like, well, they're basically the same. And you're like, no, they're not. Someone will be like, it's very, very different. But I think that's got it. I'll play one more song right here. We'll see if anyone has any last questions. But great work, everybody, today. I'm going to go get those groceries here in a little bit. I think I slept like 6.5 hours last night. Need more sleep. Need that 8 hours of sleep each night. Coffee's not doing its trick. Last sip of coffee. Puppet Shark, man, I need you to wake me up. Need some tiny Puppet Shark in my life. Yeah, always need a tiny Puppet Shark. Well, with that, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be sending out reminders to make sure you do the activity. I might not always do that for each one. I usually at the start of class, make sure you're on track, make sure you're doing the activities, make sure all that good stuff. And check out the end of class day, especially if you're working on the activity. With that, Trace and William and anyone else watching, great job. We'll see, is anyone watching right now? 2 people, which one might be me. Well, if you're still here and you made it to the end of office hours, great work. Remember, you can always swing by, ask any question you want. Puppet Shark, let's go to the 80s. Bye-bye, Puppet Shark. I'll see you later, everyone. We'll be back on Stat 201. Bye for now. Bye for now.